Welcome to this online service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of the South Hills, also known as Sunnyhill. Our mission is to create a more just and compassionate community within and beyond our walls. My name is John Porabil, and I serve as a worship associate for this congregation. If you are a newcomer or visitor to our congregation, please let us know you're here by posting a comment on our live Facebook feed or our YouTube feed, or by getting in touch with our membership director, Bethany Thornton, at sunnyhillmembership@gmail.com. We would love to let you know how you can connect with the congregation even during this time when our building is closed. Our opening words were written by Allison Wohler. With thankful hearts, we gathered this morning to celebrate the bounty of the day, to bask in the warmth of this community, to share with friends the tides of our lives, to entertain, perennially, our hopes for a better future. We join together this morning, as always, to resist injustice and inequality wherever they may be found. Our hearts are touched by the human need we feel around us, whether far away or within reach of our hand. We gather because this is how we believe our lives are best lived, in questioning and conversation, in compassion and in service, in gratitude and in joy, in companionship and in love. It is good to be together this morning. Welcome once again to this online worship service.
Please join us in saying the words for lighting our chalice.
We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to reaffirm our pledge to seek justice, which transcends mere legality and moves toward true equality, and to share the love which unites us all.
Oh, sing hallelujah. Oh, sing hallelujah. All praise be to the high arch of the heavens, and praise be by sun, moon, and stars, by trumpet, harp, and lute, with cymbals and strings and flute. With dancing, singing, and music we praise you, sing hallelujah. Oh, sing hallelujah. Oh, sing hallelujah. Our Father and Mother and Sovereign of all mercies, we wish to be quit of the war. By trumpet, harp, and lute, with cymbals and strings and flute, with dancing, singing, and music we praise you, sing hallelujah. Oh, sing hallelujah. Oh, sing hallelujah. Our Father and Mother and Sovereign of all mercies, inscribe us on pages of life. By trumpet, harp, and lute, with cymbals and strings and flute, with dancing, singing, and music we praise you, sing hallelujah.
Good morning. My name is Jen McLaughlin, and I'm the Director of Religious Education here at Sunnyhill. I have two important announcements for you all today. First of all, I want to tell all of our families watching, welcome back to our religious education program into a new church year. The year 2020 has brought numerous challenges globally, and our children and youth are not immune to the stress and anxiety that we're all experiencing. This fall, in religious education classes, we'll be focusing on community, supporting one another, and growing deeper into our Unitarian Universalist faith. Families are transitioning to homeschooling, virtual or hybrid learning, while attempting to work from home or heading into the office during a global pandemic or have lost their jobs completely. We understand the weight of the pressures being put onto all of you and your families at this difficult time. There are multiple options for your children and you to continue to learn and grow as Unitarian Universalists and as Sunnyhillers. We want to help make RE not just another thing on the calendar, but something that you look forward to as a place of respite and peace for your family. We'll be starting off every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. for live RE classes via Zoom for children in grades pre-K through 5th grade. Middle school, high school youth group, and our coming of age classes will each meet twice a month in their individual cohorts in either the afternoons or evenings, depending on the class. We'll be starting all of this in October. We've also added 2 additional on-demand RE offerings for families to use on their own, called Soulful Home and Chalice Home. More details and registration can all be found at www.sunnyhill.org, and then scroll down and click on the RE at Home box. It's underneath important links. This will take you to a separate website just for Sunnyhill RE at Home. In addition to religious education for children and youth, I've been actively working on racial justice issues alongside Pat Murray, co-chair of the Social Justice Committee at Sunnyhill. This summer, we led 3 different groups of Sunnyhillers through the book White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. We also participated alongside St. Paul's for the policing and racial justice workshops. In each of these opportunities, we have finished the conversation with what's next. One part of our answer for Sunnyhillers is to continue learning. All are welcome to join us in taking that next step and continuing to grow together. The first Wednesday of each month, we'll be discussing racial justice and utilizing the various forms of the amazing resources that have been released, from podcasts to books and movies and more. You're welcome to join as you're willing and able. The link to sign up is tinyurl.com/sunnyhillracialjustice, or you can find it in this week's beat. Our first meeting will be this upcoming Wednesday at 7 p.m. Our first resource will be How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi, and our discussion about that particular resource will take place during our November meeting. Thank you. You could say that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life has been one disagreement after another. Disagreement with creaky old ideas, with unfairness, with inequality. Ruth has disagreed, disapproved, and differed. She has objected. She has resisted. She has dissented. Disagreeable? No. Determined? Yes. This is how Ruth Bader Ginsburg changed her life, and ours. In 1940, Little Ruth's neighborhood was vibrant with immigrants, people from Italy, Ireland, England, Poland, and Germany, Jews from Russia, like Ruth's father, Nathan Bader, people from different cultures with different holidays, foods, and traditions. But in all these families in Brooklyn, New York, and in families everywhere, one thing was the same. Boys were expected to grow up, go out in the world, and do big things. Girls were expected to find husbands. Ruth's mother disagreed. Celia Amster Bader thought girls should also have the chance to make their mark on the world, so she took Ruth to the library. On the shelves were stories of girls and women who did big things. Ruth read about Nancy Drew, girl detective. She discovered Amelia Earhart, daring aviator. She learned of Athena, goddess of Greek myths. Here were independent girls and women taking charge. Ruth read her way into this world. Around her, the sweet scent of books blended with savory aromas from the Chinese restaurant downstairs. Delicious. A girl could be anything. Sometimes Ruth and her parents took car trips out of the crowded city. As they drove past a hotel in Pennsylvania, Ruth saw a sign. No dogs or Jews allowed. This is how it was in those days. Hotels, restaurants, even entire neighborhoods announcing, no Jews, whites only, no colored, no Mexicans, white only, not welcome, no, no, no. Ruth and her family were Jewish. This was prejudice, pure and simple. Now it was Ruth's turn to disagree. She disagreed by never forgetting how it felt to read such words. She never forgot the sting of prejudice. In elementary school, Ruth was excellent in some classes, and less excellent in others. Her favorites were English, history, and gym. In those, she did well. But then there was handwriting. Ruth was left-handed. Back then, teachers told left-handers they should try to write with their right hands. Ruth's right-handed penmanship was so bad, she earned a D on her penmanship test. She cried. Then, she protested. Ruth protested by writing with her left hand from that day forward, and it turned out she had quite nice handwriting. Ruth also had a little problem with sewing and cooking. These were her least favorite classes, but girls had to take them. Boys took shop, where they worked with saws and other tools. Ruth objected. She wanted to take shop. She wanted to handle a saw. She didn't get what she wanted. It may have been unfair to girls and to boys, but Ruth was learning that sometimes life was like that. Ruth loved music. She especially loved opera. In music class, she lifted her voice in song. This time, it was Ruth's music teacher who objected. Gently. Ruth simply could not carry a tune. The teacher asked Ruth not to sing out loud in the chorus. Ruth kept on singing, in the shower and in her dreams. She continued to adore opera, too. By the time Ruth was in high school, friends and teachers knew her as an outstanding student, baton twirler, cello player, and newspaper editor. As graduation approached, Ruth was chosen to make a speech at the ceremony. But she had been keeping a big secret. Her mother was terribly sick. The day before graduation, Celia Bader died. There was no agreeing with this. There was no disagreeing. This simply was. Ruth did not go to her graduation. She did not give her speech. Still, Ruth knew what her mother wanted. 3 months later, she left home and went to college. Not many girls went to college in the 1950s. Ruth made friends, but she also met girls who excluded Jews from their clubs. She met boys who thought girls should be looking for husbands. And then she met Martin Ginsburg. Marty was tall and funny. Ruth was small and serious. Marty could make her laugh. They fell in love and hatched a plan. After college, they would go to law school, both of them. Lawyers, Ruth had learned, could fight unfairness and prejudice in courts. People thought it was a fine idea for Marty to attend law school. But they didn't think Ruth should go. A lady lawyer? People disapproved. Ruth disapproved right back. So did Marty. They got married. They went to law school. And they had a baby, Jane. Ruth's law school class had a total of 9 women and 500 men. She studied mightily and tied for first place in the class. And yet, at graduation time, no one would hire this brilliant new lawyer. Why not? She was a woman. Men didn't want to work with a woman. She was a mother. Men thought a mother shouldn't pay attention to work. She was Jewish. Many people were still prejudiced. 3 strikes against her, but Ruth was not out. She resisted. And persisted. Finally, a judge hired her, and she worked like mad for him. After that, one law school hired her, and then another. Ruth became one of the few female law professors in the whole country, and she did it all with a new baby at home, James. Ruth had disagreed, and worked her way into being a lawyer and professor, but around her, other women were excluded from jobs. When they did get jobs, they earned less than men. They were kept out of important roles in courts and government. To make matters worse, the Supreme Court of the United States, the highest court in the land, approved of all of this. As one Supreme Court justice had written years before, the natural and proper timidity and delicacy which belongs to the female sex evidently unfits it for many of the occupations of civil life. In other words, women and girls were too shy and too weak to do big things in the world. Another Supreme Court opinion declared, "Woman has always been dependent upon man." Ruth really, really, really disagreed with this. So Ruth went to court to fight for the equal treatment of women. The most important cases went to the Supreme Court. The first time she appeared there, Ruth was so nervous she feared she might be sick. But standing before the 9 Supreme Court justices, Ruth imagined them as her students. She, Professor Ginsburg, needed to teach these students, who were all men, why a person's choices shouldn't be limited just because she was born a girl. Ruth wasn't only fighting for women. When women were excluded from the work world, men were excluded from home life. Why shouldn't a father stay home to care for his children and cook the meals? Why shouldn't his wife run a business? These were fresh ideas in the 1970s. Ruth did not win every case, but she won enough. With each victory, women and men and girls and boys enjoyed a little bit more equality. Sometimes Ruth and Marty's children received confused looks when they said that their mother argued cases in the Supreme Court and their father made the family's dinners. People found this strange. Ruth, Marty, Jane, and James did not concur. They kept on being the type of family they wanted to be, and dinners at the Ginsburg home were delicious. Marty was a successful lawyer, but also a marvelous chef who had mastered the art of French cooking. Ruth, her family knew, had mastered the art of a burnt pot roast. Ruth became well known as a lawyer, so well known that President Jimmy Carter chose her to be a judge in Washington, D.C. Then Ruth became known as a first-rate judge, and President Bill Clinton asked her to be a justice on the Supreme Court. Along with the 8 other Supreme Court justices, her job would be to decide the most significant cases and answer the most difficult legal questions in the United States. Ruth agreed. In 1993, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg became the first Jewish woman on the nation's highest court. In each case the Supreme Court considers, after hearing from lawyers who argue for each side, the 9 justices take a vote. The side that gets the most votes wins the case. The justices who agree write an opinion to explain the court's ruling. When Justice Ginsburg votes with the winning side, she wears a special lace collar over her robe. But many times, when the Supreme Court announces the decision, Justice Ginsburg disagrees. "I dissent," she says, and she writes her own opinion explaining why. Plus, she wears a different collar, just for dissenting. "I dissent," Justice Ginsburg said when the court wouldn't help women or African Americans or immigrants who had been treated unfairly at work. "I dissent," when the court rejected a law meant to protect the right of all citizens to vote, no matter their skin color. "I dissent," when the court said no to schools that offered African Americans a better chance to go to college. Justice Ginsburg could be very convincing. In one dissent, she explained why the court was wrong to rule against women workers who were fighting to get paid the same as men. Congress and the President agreed with her and passed a law to undo the court's ruling. Justice Ginsburg has disagreed most often with the legal views of Justice Antonin Scalia, but they didn't just complain. "I dissent. No, I dissent." They shared their conflicting ideas. Each pointed out weaknesses in the other's arguments, and after their opinions were written, the 2 justices had fun with each other. They didn't let disagreements about law get in the way of a long friendship. Justice Ginsburg is now the oldest member of the Supreme Court. Some people have said she should quit because of her age. Justice Ginsburg begs to differ. She works as hard as ever. She exercises in the gym. She never misses a day in court. She attends the opera, gives speeches, and travels. Many have cheered Justice Ginsburg for her persistence and independence. They've called her a rock star, a queen, a goddess, a hero. Of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg isn't a rock star, a queen, or a goddess, but to many she is a hero. She made change happen, and she changed minds. She cleared a path for people to follow in her footsteps. Girls in college, women in law school, and everyone who wants to be treated without prejudice. Her voice may not carry a tune, but she sings out for equality. Step by step, she has made a difference. One disagreement after another. The end.
The song Mary is about to sing, "Here Comes the Change," was written and performed by Kesha for the film On the Basis of Sex, which told part of the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life and legal accomplishments. Mimi later, who directed that film, helped pick Kesha to write the song and said, "I wanted her to write this song because her passionate voice and immense talent magnify the social justice imperatives Ruth Bader Ginsburg continued to fight for every day." Later said, "It was important to both of us that this song be not only an anthem to all that Ruth Bader Ginsburg achieved, but also a rallying cry for how much more change is yet to come." In honor of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Here Comes the Change, a song that I am holding in my heart through Election Day and beyond.
One day I'll be gone, the world will keep turning. I hope I leave this place better than I found it. Oh, it's hard, I know it's hard to be the lightning in the dark. But hold on tight, you'll be alright. You know it's time. Here comes the change. We're coming of age. This is not a phase. Here comes the change. Is it a crazy thought that if I had a child, I hope they live to see the day that everyone's equal? Oh, it's hard, I know it's hard to be the right inside the wrong. But hold on tight, you'll be alright. You know it's time. Oh, here comes the change. We're coming of age. This is not a phase. Here comes the change. Hope there'll come a time when we can live in and die free. I hope and pray there'll come a day, and it's coming soon. Here comes the change. We're coming of age. This is not a phase. Here comes the change. We're coming of age. This is not a phase. Here comes the change. It's time to change. We are the change. Here comes the change.
Each week at this time in the service, we share joys and sorrows that have been submitted by members of the congregation. We share the things that we are celebrating, as well as the things that we are grieving, so they need not be held alone. Joys and sorrows may be submitted online from our website, or by telephone or email. After each joy or sorrow that I read, please respond by saying, "We hold you in our hearts." A combined joy and sorrow from Larry Comden. Larry says, "My late wife, Tippy Comden, died of lung cancer 10 years ago this week. She was an active, devoted member of Sunnyhill starting in 1967 with the original fellowship. She taught the RE youth group and classes of adult RE. 2 artworks, the print over the mantle in the fellowship hall and the original stained glass chalice in the front door, now displayed in reproduction at the end of the corridor, were made by her. She also made many films and videos of church activities. At the dedication of her plaque in the memorial garden, Reverend J. Abernathy said he heard more about Tippy than most of the living members of our congregation while he was here. Larry's joy is our 53 years of marriage and her example of a great mother and grandmother. Tippy is still missed by friends and family. To Larry Comden and his friends and family, we hold you in our hearts. A sorrow and hopefully eventually a joy submitted on behalf of Jean Ferlin. Jean underwent knee replacement surgery on Friday and will be recovering in the upcoming weeks and months ahead. Although this surgery was not as involved or as prolonged as the back surgeries she had a few years ago, it's still a challenging undertaking, and I know that she would appreciate all of your good thoughts and good wishes. To Jean, her family, and friends, we hold you in our hearts. A sorrow for everyone who has been affected by the pandemic. This past week, we passed the mark of 1 million people worldwide who have died from COVID-19, and more than 7 million contracting the disease in the United States, including just a few days ago, the president and his wife. This virus is horrific and truly should not be wished upon anyone. To all of those who are ill, who have lost family members or have struggled physically, financially, or emotionally because of the pandemic, we hold you in our hearts. Let us bear in mind all these joys and sorrows, as well as those that are held too closely to be shared. Please join me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. Let us pause for a moment to remember those who have planted seeds. Seeds of physical nourishment that will fuel our bodies. Seeds of spiritual nourishment that will feed our souls. Seeds of compassion that will produce more love in a fearful world. Seeds of righteous change that will liberate the oppressed. Seeds of justice that will at long last bend the arc of the moral universe. Let us remember the lives of those who have planted these seeds, the sacrifices that they made during their lifetimes, the hardships, scorn, and ridicule that they endured, the ideals that they help and kept alive despite the odds against them, the joy that they brought to their work even in hard times, the courage and perseverance with which they lived their lives. As we pause to remember these planters of all that is good in life, let us breathe in the goodness that surrounds us, the many gifts that we have received that have been the results of the efforts of so many others. May we ourselves become planters of holy seeds, seeds of kindness and compassion in the midst of hatred and indifference, seeds of liberation and justice in the midst of oppression and harm, seeds of truth and honesty in the midst of deception and lies. Seeds of reason in the midst of absurdity. Seeds of love in the midst of fear. And may we tend these seeds, both those planted by others and by ourselves, that they might one day grow into a beautiful harvest that nourishes and brightens all the world, affirming the life and love that we all share. Amen. In just a few minutes, I'll talk a little bit about the Jewish holiday known as Sukkot, which is taking place this week. One of the traditions associated with this holiday is the invitation of Ushpizin, meaning imagined guests, to take part in the festival along with everyone else. The chant that Daisy and Mary are about to sing is titled Ushpizin, and the Hebrew words are translated as sit down, exalted guests. Sit down, holy guests.
Tivu, tivu, shpizi, ilain. Tivu, tivu, shpizi, kadishin. Tivu, tivu, shpizi, ilain. Tivu, tivu, shpizi, kadishin. Tivu, tivu, shpizin, ilain. Tivu, tivu, shpizin, kadeshin. 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 Tivu, tivu, shpizin, ilain. Tivu, tivu, shpizin, kadeshin, kadeshin.
As I mentioned earlier, the Jewish festival of Sukkot is taking place this week. It's a holiday that's less well known than Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but it is significant nevertheless. One of Sukkot's traditions, as I mentioned, is inviting Ushpizin, or imagined guests, to celebrate the occasion. Traditionally, these guests have included 7 biblical patriarchs: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Joseph, and David, all men, obviously. But as Jewish historian and activist Lisa Kogan says, modern Jewish thinkers have reimagined this custom to include inviting women together with the men as honored guests. There are different opinions about which women to include. One of the earliest suggestions was adding the 7 women listed in the Talmud as prophetesses: Sarah, Miriam, Deborah, Hannah, Abigail, Huldah, and Esther. But in more recent years, honored guests suggested by rabbinical assemblies have included such women as astronaut Judith Resnick, songwriter Debbie Friedman, children's author Judy Blume, and Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Each of these women have planted seeds that have resulted in a harvest of enduring accomplishment and have opened doors to those who have come after them. So it is fitting to invoke the legacy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg at this time of the year, not only as a way of honoring her life, but also as an acknowledgement of her place in the pantheon of Jewish women whose contributions will endure well beyond their lifetimes. We are living in a time that calls out for positive role models. There are plenty of negative role models around, perhaps most famously the current occupant of the White House, whose bloviated, bullying bombast and racist ramblings at this week's presidential debate were a source of great national embarrassment, and who recently contracted the virus, whose significance he has often downplayed and flouted. Now, more than ever, we need the example of individuals who, while they may not be perfect, do represent the best aspects of humanity: compassion, justice, perseverance, and courage. And I cannot think of anyone who better represents these qualities than Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whose recent death leaves a huge tear in our American social, moral, and political fabric. One of my favorite tributes to RBG, among the many that we have seen over the last week or so, came from a child. As reported in the New York Times, Lexi Wackman, age 9, of Washington, was just 6 when she had her introduction to Justice Ginsburg. Her mother bought her a copy of I Dissent, the children's book that Jen shared with us earlier, which prompted Lexi to give a speech about Justice Ginsburg to her fellow first graders. Lexi burst into tears when she heard that the justice had died, and her mother encouraged her to write a note, which they left on the steps of the Supreme Court last Saturday. It read as follows: Ruth, I always dreamed of being an activist like you. I read your book many times, and my inspiration for you never changed. I thought you could never die. Her sentiment was, I think, shared by many of us. While we know that everyone must die someday, we held out hope that Ruth Bader Ginsburg might prove the exception, as she has in so many other ways. The story that Jen shared with us did a good job of highlighting Justice Ginsburg's many accomplishments as a litigator, jurist, and as a human being. Her legal career really began to take off in 1972 when the ACLU created a women's rights project and hired Ginsburg as its first director. As reported in her obituary, it was under the ACLU project's auspices that she carried out her Supreme Court litigation strategy to persuade the justices that official discrimination on the basis of sex was a harm of constitutional dimension. The implications of this strategy were not immediately apparent, even to those who watched closely as it unfolded. Clearly, Ms. Ginsburg was doing something different in selecting cases in which the victims of disparate government treatment were men. On one level, it was obvious that she was trying to feed the justices a diet of cases they could easily digest. Why should men be treated less generously than women simply because they were men? What the government owed to one sex, it owed to the other, full stop. But for Ginsburg, something deeper and more radical was at stake. Her project was to free both sexes, men as well as women, from the role that society had assigned them, and to harness the Constitution to break down the structures by which the state maintained and enforced these separate spheres. In the end, her strategy worked. While she did not win every case, she argued, she won enough cases to set legal precedent and to begin to change the course of legal thinking regarding sex and gender in the United States. One of the things I most admired about Ruth Bader Ginsburg was that, unlike other Supreme Court nominees, she did not dodge the question of her position on abortion during her Senate confirmation hearings. When asked about her stance on Roe v. Wade by Senator Hank Brown, a Colorado Republican, she said, "This is something central to a woman's life, to her dignity. It's a decision that she must make for herself. And when government controls that decision for her, she's being treated as less than a fully adult human, responsible for her own choices." Unfortunately, the president's current Supreme Court nominee does not share Ginsburg's regard for a woman's right to choose. In fact, in 2006, Judge Barrett added her signature to a letter and newspaper advertisement that called the court's 1973 decision on Roe v. Wade barbaric. And by the way, despite what you may hear to the contrary, Barrett's stand on choice doesn't really have anything to do with her being a Catholic. There are plenty of Catholics who support a woman's right to choose. And opposing Barrett's stance on abortion has absolutely nothing to do with being anti-Catholic. At any rate, Ginsburg's candor was always welcome and refreshing. Her legal writings were filled with imagination, legal and moral clarity, and an invigorating straightforwardness. It was, of course, her dissenting opinions that made her as famous as she eventually became. Again, as stated in her obituary in the New York Times, Justice Ginsburg's pointed and powerful dissenting opinions attracted growing attention as the court turned further to the right. A law student, Shana Nizhnik, anointed her the notorious RBG, a play on the name of the notorious B.I.G., a famous rapper who was Brooklyn-born, like the Justice. Soon the name and Justice Ginsburg's image, her expression serene yet severe, a frilly lace collar adorning her black judicial robe, her eyes framed by oversized glasses, and a gold crown perched at a rakish angle on her head, became an internet sensation. Young women had the image tattooed on their arms. Daughters were dressed in RBG costumes for Halloween. You can't spell truth without Ruth appeared on bumper stickers and t-shirts. A biography, Notorious RBG, The Life and Times of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, reached the bestseller list the day after its publication in 2015. And the next year, Simon & Schuster brought out the children's book, I Dissent, which we heard earlier. Dissent is a powerful and important concept in our current era. As Rebecca Solnit writes, noting that the history of silence is central to women's history, violence against women is often against our voices and our stories, she says. It is a refusal of our voices and of what a voice means, the right to self-determination, to participation, to consent or dissent, to live and participate, to interpret and narrate. The struggle of liberation, Solnit writes, has been in part to create the conditions for the formerly silenced to speak and be heard. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a central figure in the struggle for liberation, again and again provided a strong voice for the formerly silenced. Though diminutive in physical stature, her eloquent dissents spoke volumes, loudly and clearly. As important as her legal career was, and it was enormously important, I would be remiss if I did not give some mention to Ginsburg's remarkable personal life as well. Her marriage of 56 years to Martin Ginsburg was a true partnership, a somewhat rare and inspiring example of just how life-affirming such partnerships can be. Their marriage ended with Martin's death from cancer in 2010 at the age of 78. In his final days, he left a note handwritten on a yellow pad for his wife to find by his bedside. "My dearest Ruth," it began, "you are the only person I have loved in my life, setting aside a bit parents and kids and their kids. And I have admired and loved you almost since the day we first met at Cornell." He added, "What a treat it has been to watch you progress to the very top of the legal world." In honor of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life and legacy of working for equality and justice for everyone, today I'm wearing this pen featuring a replica of one of Ginsburg's famous frilly lace collars and the word dissent. It also turns out that those collars provided a link between Ginsburg and her Jewish heritage. At the time her ancestors immigrated from Eastern Europe, handmade needlework and lacework was at its height, much of it produced by Jewish craftspeople. The lace collar that Ginsburg wore for the opening session of the Supreme Court last October had woven into it the Hebrew word tzedek, meaning justice, echoing a biblical verse that hung on the wall of her chambers, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, justice, justice, you shall pursue. I hope that we all feel compelled to honor RBG, not just through wearing pins and t-shirts and lace collars, but also through our actions, through our work to restore democracy to our flailing republic, through our advocacy for the liberation of those who are oppressed, through our willingness again and again to side with love and pursue justice. I am reminded of this poem written by Maya Angelou titled, "When Great Trees Fall." When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory suddenly sharpened examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing, electric vibration. Our senses, restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be, and be better, for they existed. I hope and pray that we can be and will be better because of the life and legacy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. May she be among the Ushpizin, the imagined guests, this coming election day and during all the holy days when we honor those who have planted the seeds that will one day lead to bountiful harvests. May it be so. Amen. Please rise in body and or spirit and join us in singing this hymn associated with the Jewish High Holy Days, as was our opening hymn. This one is titled Hallelujah, and the words taken from the 150th Psalm are translated as praise God with clanging cymbals, with loud clashing cymbals. Let everything that breathes sing out praise.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, be still, say Shama. Hallelujah, hallelujah, be still, say Teruah. Kohan Shabbat, hallelujah, 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 Kohan Shabbat.
We'll now give and receive our morning offering. We do not have a designated beneficiary for today's offering, so any non-pledge income will go toward our general operating fund. But we will continue to have special offerings in the weeks and months to come as we identify and try to help meet pressing needs in the larger community. If you'd like to make a donation via our online giving system, you can do so one of two ways. You can go to our website, sunnyhill.org, and click on the big green button that says Online Giving, and then follow the step-by-step instructions that will pop up. Or you can give by text at 412-324-3130. Just dial that number using your smartphone and follow the instructions. You can also mail a check if you prefer, and you can find our mailing address on our website, sunnyhill.org. Thank you for your generosity.
Please join us in saying the words for extinguishing our chalice.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of unity, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our closing words were written by Mark Bellatini. Go in peace. Live simply, at home in yourself. Be just in your word, just in deed. Remember the depth of your own compassion. Do not forget your power in the days of your powerlessness. Do not desire with desire to be wealthier than your peers, and never stint your hand of charity. Practice forbearance in all that you do. Speak the truth or speak not. Take care of your body. Be good to it. It is a good gift. Crave peace for all peoples in this world, beginning with yourselves, and go as you go with the dream of that peace set firm in your heart. Go in peace.